live in the CNN Newsroom. I'm Ana Cabrera in New York. Thanks so much for being here. A big announcement today. She is now officially running for president. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren today launching her campaign for the White House in 2020.
This is the fight of our lives. The fight to build an America where dreams are possible, an America that works for everyone. And that is why I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
Senator Warren and an enthusiastic crowd in Lawrence, Massachusetts today. She promised to fight corruption, calling it, quote, a cancer on our democracy. And she took aim at the current president.
The Trump administration is the most corrupt in living memory. But even after Trump is gone, it won't do just to do a better job of running a broken system. We need to take power in Washington away from the wealthy and well-connected and put it back in the hands of the people where it belongs.
Warren is trying to move past an earlier controversy. She's apologized several times recently for claiming to be of Native American descent. And now she's joining a number of Democratic candidates or hopefuls, crisscrossing the early voting states today, among them 3 other U.S. senators, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Sherrod Brown. And joining us now, former Hillary Clinton campaign manager and CNN political commentator Robbie Mook, and Emily Tish Sussman, a Democratic strategist and former staffer on President Obama's 2008 campaign. I'll start with you, Robbie. No surprise, Elizabeth Warren laying out a very progressive agenda. She's walking out onto the stage, as we showed, announcing her candidacy to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. Was this rollout effective? Do you think she resonated?
Well, I certainly think that she's raising the issue that's at the core of many Democrats' concern right now, which is the deep corruption of this administration. And how right now, when you look at what the Republicans were doing when they were in office unchecked with, all 3 branches of the executive and legislative parts of government, they were passing massive tax breaks for billionaires and millionaires, huge tax breaks for corporations and pass-through entities. So I think that she's pegging her candidacy to the right issues. I think the struggle for any Democrat running right now in this big crowded field is how do you break out and how do you distinguish yourself? I think she's pushing a little bit harder on certain pieces of this than other candidates. We'll have to see if that's enough. But, I think her focus was right in the right spot today. That speech was all about the voters and their lives and what she's going to do for them.
And Emily, we're seeing Elizabeth Warren is wasting no time hitting the road. She's in New Hampshire. These are live pictures from her next event that she's at currently. Meantime, President Trump and his re-election campaign is already going after Warren today with this statement. Elizabeth Warren has already been exposed as a fraud by the Native Americans she impersonated and disrespected to advance her personal career, and the people of Massachusetts she deceived to get elected. The American people will reject her dishonest campaign and socialist ideas. Why do you think the Trump campaign feels the need to respond to Warren? Because we haven't seen this with the other Democrats who have jumped in so far, and she's one of 8 now.
Yeah, uplifting Warren is actually probably the best thing the Trump administration and Trump campaign could do to have her break out. Any attack on any candidate is kind of perceived as by the public as them being a threat to him. That's who he tends to go after. And the higher visibility that he can give her, the better it is for her, honestly. I would imagine the reason they're that he's thinking about tweeting or in the way that he goes after is because he is the one that ended up bringing up this Native American history, and it actually stuck in a way that it probably shouldn't have. So I imagine they feel like there's blood in the water and can keep going after her. Something I think is interesting about her campaign and the stunt that she's been on so far is that she actually is going after Trump directly, much more so than the other candidates. I think Robbie makes a good point in that her rollout speech today was much more about the people and the economic issues and the day-to-day issues, which is really where her strength lies. The more she talks about, she's really running in like the nerd lane. So the more that she can talk about understanding people's day-to-day struggles and having that economist background is stronger for her.
The nerd lane. I like that. I'd like to think I'm in the nerd lane as well. She does have to answer these questions about claiming Native American heritage, like it or not, and she's continued to address this issue on multiple occasions. Let's listen.
I am sorry that I extended confusion about tribal citizenship and tribal sovereignty and for harm caused. I am also sorry for not being more mindful of this decades ago.
Emily, the latest polling numbers show she is facing a 32% favorable rating. It's not great, obviously. You can see her unfavorables are actually a little bit higher. Do you think she can get past this controversy, or will it continue to haunt her campaign?
I think it'll go on as long as we keep talking about it, honestly. Like, she is going to run a campaign that is going to talk about, it is going to be in the nerd lane. She gets very specific into details. She rose to power under the potential of the CFPB. Like, she really knows this stuff. And so the more that she can talk about it, the bigger platform that's given. It's not sound bites, it's not tweets, but the more we talk about that, the better off she'll do. It's interesting that she went back to New Hampshire today. She's actually been in New Hampshire through the entire last cycle and has more visibility there than really almost any other primary candidate. It's really Iowa, South Carolina, where she needs to make a little bit more inroads. So the fact that she's going back there, I guess, it shows where she's doubling down.
Robbie, let's talk about the ever-important young voter base. Remember this attempt on Instagram that unleashed a wave of mockery?
My husband Bruce is now in here. You want a beer?
No, I'll pass on the beer for now.
You sure? Come over and say hello to folks.
Yes.
So this is my sweetie.
Hello.
He's the best. And I'm crazy.
So can Warren connect with younger voters, Robbie?
I absolutely think she can. I think she's raising a lot of really important issues that, you know, younger voters care about. We think about student debt. She's really been a leader on that issue. We think about jobs and minimum wage for young people entering the workforce. I think so. Look, I think Warren's had it really tough. Emily's absolutely right. I mean, you know, and I went through this on the Clinton campaign. People decide to harp on something. They won't give it up. Hillary got attacked for not being, quote unquote, relatable on social media. I think what Democrats need to do is take a deep breath, step back, really listen to what these candidates have to say, really think about what's in it for them, and give her a chance. And I think, you know, people are on different sides of what Warren believes. Some people think she's pushing the envelope too much. I'm sure there's some people who don't think enough. But I think as Democrats, we want to have a better primary that's not about drama, that's not about intrigue. That's what the Republicans got caught up in 2016. I think that's how they got Donald Trump as a nominee. So I'd like to think that, you know, we're not going to be, you know, judgy about social media. We're going to judge people on the merits.
Emily, I'm finding it a fun time to be an anchor on the weekends because so many of these events are happening during my hours. And tomorrow we expect to hear Senator Amy Klobuchar announce her 2020 plans. When you look at who is officially announced so far, at least, it's quite a diverse field. What effect will that have on Democrats' chances of taking back the White House?
I think very strong. Look, it's an exciting time to be a Democrat. There's great candidates out there. As a party, as a country, we should be so lucky for any one of these people to be our nominee. I think for everyone who has, which is everybody, who lived through the 2016 primary, does not want to relive that and does not want to get so hard into camps that you actually don't feel ready to go into the general. So look, people are choosing their candidates, people are picking their camps, but really the thing they're looking for most is who can beat Donald Trump in the general election, and who people are preferring who they think has electability over their own personal choice even. So the fact that there's going to be a big primary, an exciting one that people will be able to put forth different but not wildly different visions for the country, I actually think is good in getting the entire base to move forward with one candidate once we get to the general.
Robbie, you know Senator Bernie Sanders' message and strategy better than a lot, I imagine, after campaigning against him in the 2016 primary. Where do you think his mindset is right now when it comes to 2020? He obviously has not made any announcements yet about whether he's going to run.
Yeah, I think Bernie comes in with strengths and some challenges, right? I think the obvious strength is he has universal name recognition, has a big list of supporters, a big political network that he built over the last cycle. I think the challenge for him is going to be that he was in a two-person race, as Emily was just talking about. And in many respects, his candidacy was defined in contrast to Hillary Clinton. So the real question to me is, who is Bernie Sanders now, and how does he distinguish himself in this field? He can't just be anti-Hillary. He can't just be anti-establishment broadly, because you could make that argument about a number of these candidates. He needs to be something a little bit different this time. And, you know, I think we saw in some of his comments, he's getting pushed harder to be more responsive on issues like, you know, structural racism in this country, implicit racism. And so I think some of the challenges that maybe were masked or easier to navigate last time are going to be tougher. That doesn't mean he can't be successful. But if I were with his team, those are the things I'd be really thinking about really closely.
All right, Robbie Mook, Emily Tish Sussman. You see the polling right there, where people's heads are at right now on the Democratic side. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
It is the blog post that triggered a federal investigation. The world's richest man says he was blackmailed by the National Enquirer, and now a possible connection to a close U.S. ally.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Allegations of extortion and blackmail, risque photos, secret texts, and the richest man in the world. Federal prosecutors are now investigating claims by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos that executives who run the National Enquirer tried to extort him. It all dates back to earlier this year. Remember this, when the magazine exposed Bezos' affair? Around the same time, he and his wife announced they were getting a divorce. Well, Bezos then launched a private investigation into how that information got to the National Enquirer and whether it was a political hit job, because he also owns the Washington Post and has been a frequent target of President Trump. CNN's Alex Marquardt has more.
The National Enquirer's parent company hitting back at stinging allegations and revelations by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, saying in a statement it believes fervently that it acted lawfully, that it was in good faith negotiations to resolve all matters with Bezos. American Media Inc., or AMI, also promising to launch an internal investigation into Bezos' long list of claims against them, including what he called extortion and blackmail when AMI threatened to leak risque photos of him. Sources telling CNN federal prosecutors are also looking into his accusations. In his blog post, Bezos alleges that AMI had a cozy relationship, not just with the Trump White House, but with Saudi Arabia, also alleged in published reports. Last year, AMI put out a 97-page glossy magazine heralding the kingdom's new crown prince and his vision ahead of his trip to the U.S. The Saudi embassy in Washington claimed they had no involvement or knowledge of the AMI publication, with Prince Mohammed bin Salman on the cover. A man the CIA has concluded ordered the violent murder of Jamal Khashoggi of the Washington Post, which Bezos owns. The Saudis have called the finding false. But the Associated Press reported that, according to sources, embassy officials got an electronic copy of the pro-kingdom magazine about 3 weeks before it came out. A top Saudi official says he has no idea of any relationship with AMI, adding, "It's like a soap opera," and told CNN that as far as he knows, the Saudis did not press AMI to publish negative stories about Bezos. The biggest of which was the expose on Bezos' extramarital affair, which people around him believe was a political hit job, alleged payback for his newspaper's dogged reporting of President Trump and of the Saudi crown prince's role in the Khashoggi murder. Trump and Pecker have a well-documented history, the tabloid paying a so-called catch-and-kill fee to Karen McDougal months before the 2016 election for her story about her alleged affair with Trump, which he denies. Pecker then flipped, cooperating with Robert Mueller's team in exchange for immunity to detail those payments made by Trump's lawyer. That turn didn't dampen the president's rejoicing in the Enquirer's splashy story about Bezos' infidelity, calling the Amazon CEO Jeff Bozo on Twitter and saying this about Bezos' looming divorce from his wife of 25 years.
I wish him luck. It's going to be a beauty.
No doubt this is a complex web of allegations and personal history, but what Bezos, without proof, is saying here is clear, that AMI had reasons to protect and to promote the Saudis, that his newspaper, the Washington Post, and their relentless coverage of the Khashoggi murder angered AMI's friends, driving home the point that this expose of his affair and the attempted blackmail were politically motivated. Alex Marquardt, CNN, Washington.
Joining us now, CNN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson. Joey, Bezos says what these emails show, what he posted in his blog post on Medium, is blackmail and an extortion attempt. Does he have a good case?
Anna, good to see you. Good afternoon. I believe he does. And here's why I believe he does have a good case. And I know some in different legal minds can disagree. That's fine. But here's what I say. The essence of extortion is when you're looking and threatening someone, and you're threatening them not only physically, but let's be clear, it could be a threat that's injurious to the reputation as well. Also, as it relates to extortion, again, not only physical, but reputational, and that's what they're doing. It doesn't have to be an extortion related to money. It could be a thing of value. And keeping your eye on the prize here, what did they say? They said to him, hey, you better go on record saying that what we did in terms of posting that expose about you and your affair was not politically motivated. So if you do that, then we won't post these other pictures that we intend to post, which are compromising and scandalous, as to you and as to Ms. Sanchez, who is, the person that you're involved in. And certainly if he went on record and did that, that is an exchange of something of value. So I do believe that it meets the definition of the extortion statute, Anna, and I think that prosecutors will be well advised to take a look at it. Part of the reason people prosecutors do, not only, obviously things that violate the law, but you want to send a deterrent message that this is not the conduct that you really should be subscribing to. And so to the extent that they are, I think that there's some real exposure here for AMI and, of course, Mr. Peck.
One thing AMI argues, in the emails at least, that Bezos posted, is that they could legally publish the private photos, writing this, quote, with millions of Americans having a vested interest in the success of Amazon, an exploration of Mr. Bezos' judgment as reflected by his texts and photos is indeed newsworthy and in the public interest. Is that a sound legal argument if AMI were to then go and publish these private photos?
Here's where I don't buy that. Now, a person could always have a legal basis to do something. So let's relate this to the president again, to the Comey firing. Hey, I had a legal basis to fire Jim Comey. Therefore, what I did was proper. It's not only the fact that you have a legal reason to do it, it's your intent for doing it. If you remember Rod Blagojevich, right, the governor who was exchanging money for a Senate seat. And the fact is, as a governor, you could appoint the senator. Well, if someone's paying you to do that, obviously, even though you have the right to do it, it calls into question the basis, the motivation for which you are doing it. And so to here, Anna, I say that, yes, they can legally do it otherwise, but here they clearly talked about their motivation for doing so. And so when you look at the actual foundation for which they're doing it, I just don't buy this whole public interest issue, nor do I buy the fact that, hey, since they're press, prosecutors shouldn't get involved, or since lawyers are involved, the prosecution shouldn't be getting involved. Hogwash. Lawyers have an obligation, if they advised him, to advise your client properly. And if you want to defend yourself on the saying, well, it's the advice of counsel defense. My lawyer said I could do it. Well, then that's an affirmative defense, but it's not a bar to prosecution. So I just think there's all types of exposure here. I think this was the wrong call on AMI and Pecker's part, but I certainly think it was the right call and an act of courage by Jeff Bezos to say, you know what, I'll reveal it myself. Come on, this is wrong what you're doing.
You're talking about the motivation on AMI's part, and I wonder what that's all about, given there was a big reason for them not to go after Bezos in this way, and that is this agreement with the SDNY that was contingent on Pecker and AMI staying clean because they were part of this investigation into Michael Cohen and this whole hush money scheme. What could this mean for him now?
That's a great question, Anna, and it strikes at the core of what the problems are. So let's remember a couple of things. First of all, let's remember the Washington Post, who's behind it, and how they're covering Trump, and how Trump hates the coverage because they're exposing what's going on. Let's also remember Pecker's connection to Trump and the fact that they are closely aligned. So to the core of your question, when you have a plea agreement, right, and we know that AMI or Pecker, they weren't prosecuted, but we also know that they admitted to, remember, $150,000, Karen McDougal helping Trump. Trump apparently had an affair with her. They caught the story. They killed the story. They didn't publish the story, thereby helping the president, thereby contributing to his campaign, thereby being in violation of campaign finance. They said, hey, we violated it, but under this agreement, you turn state's evidence, you help the feds, you cooperate, you're good. Now, what happens is that part of their agreement is not to commit any crimes. So if this is found to be a crime and they, in fact, are looked at and prosecuted for threatening Mr. Bezos, as they very well could be, that unravels the entirety of that agreement, subjects them then not only to the underlying campaign finance issue, for which the Fed said, you get a pass, help us, but it subjects them to new liability as it relates to this new potential crime. So the direct answer to your question, the actual ramifications are huge in the event prosecutors decide to pursue this avenue.
Joey Jackson, I'm sure this is not the end. We'll have you back to discuss further. Thank you very much. Always good to have you.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. Major fireworks as the president's acting AG goes toe-to-toe with newly empowered Democrats in the House.
Where did you come from, and how the heck did you become the head of the Department of Justice? So hopefully you can help me work through this confusion.
All right, well, Congressman,
Mr. Whitaker, that was a statement, not a question. Okay. I assume you know the difference.
In what can only be called a showdown on Capitol Hill between House Democrats and Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, the question today is, what did we learn? The fiery hearing essentially comes down to this. Whitaker repeatedly refused to answer questions about his conversations with President Trump, no matter how much the Dems phrased, how much they press, how they phrase their inquiries. But there was at least one exception. CNN Jessica Schneider brings us some of the key moments.
This hearing highlighted the partisan divisions on Capitol Hill, Republicans calling it unwarranted, while Democrats dug in. And now, after hours and hours of questioning, the committee chair, Gerald Nadler, says he is still not satisfied and even not sure he believes all of Whitaker's testimony after several back-and-forth testy exchanges. Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker making his first appearance before the House Judiciary Committee.
This hearing is pointless. If this is the way we're going to go, then we'll have plenty of stunts. We're going to have plenty of theatrics. Bring your popcorn. I'm thinking about maybe we just set up a popcorn machine in the back, because that's what this is becoming.
And igniting a political firestorm.
It's our understanding that at least one briefing occurred in December before your decision not to recuse yourself on December 19th and Christmas Day. Is that correct?
What's the basis for that question, sir?
Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, again, what is the basis for your question? You're saying that it is your...
Sir, I'm asking the questions. I only have 5 minutes. So please answer yes or no.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to... you were asking me a question. It is your understanding. Can you tell me where you get the basis?
No, I'm not going to tell you that. I don't have time to get into that.
Whitaker at one point trying to cut the chairman off.
I see that your 5 minutes is up, and so I'm here voluntarily. We have agreed to 5-minute rounds, and
the committee.
I think that's a fine place to end the 5-minute rule.
The committee will come to order. I will point out that we didn't enforce the 5-minute rule on Acting Attorney General Whitaker.
Whitaker denied any conversations with the president or other White House officials about the special counsel's investigation, which Whitaker oversees, either before or after he took over the top spot at DOJ.
At no time has the White House asked for, nor have I provided, any promises or commitments concerning the special counsel's investigation or any other investigation. I'm sorry.
It's a yes or no question. Have you communicated anything you learned in that briefing about the investigation to President Trump? Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, as I've said earlier today in my opening remarks, I do not intend today to talk about my private conversations with the President of the United States. But to answer your question, I have not talked to the President of the United States about the special counsel's investigation.
Whitaker has come under fire for denouncing the Mueller investigation as a commentator before he joined the Justice Department, which Republicans quickly pointed out was not the reason for the hearing.
It's nothing but character assassination, harassment of our witness.
Whitaker, who said he has been fully briefed on the Mueller investigation, declined to specifically condemn the label witch hunt used by the president to describe the Russia probe.
I have not interfered with the special counsel's investigation.
Are you overseeing a witch hunt? You'd stop a witch hunt, wouldn't you?
Congressman, it would be inappropriate for me to talk about an ongoing investigation.
And Whitaker giving no specific indication how much longer the investigation will last.
We haven't received the report. Bob Mueller is going to finish his investigation when he wants to finish his investigation.
And this isn't the end of the inquiry. Committee Chairman Nadler read a list of questions he still wants written answers to, including when Matthew Whitaker was briefed on the special counsel investigation and whether Matthew Whitaker had conversations with the president after those briefings, because Nadler says he just doesn't find Whitaker's insistence that he didn't have conversations with the president completely credible. And of course, the chairman, Jerry Nadler, is once again threatening a subpoena if it's necessary to get those answers. Jessica Schneider, CNN, Washington.
The president's annual physical is complete, and President Trump has a clean bill of health. The president's physician released a statement last night saying Trump is in very good health without giving any specifics. CNN chief medical correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta takes a deeper look into the president's health.
Anna, of course, it's the last sentence of this statement that everyone's going to pay the most attention to. I'm happy to announce the President of the United States is in very good health, and I anticipate he will remain so for the duration of his presidency and beyond. That's from Dr. Sean Conley, who is the physician to the president. Obviously very encouraging. 4 hours of a physical exam, 11 different consultants. It's a pretty thorough exam, it sounds like. And the question they're trying to answer, is he fit to lead? Now, you remember, Anna, last year, Dr. Ronnie Jackson was a physician to the president. He was asked the same question, and he gave a very enthusiastic yes.
In summary, the president's overall health is excellent.
A remarkable scene last January in the White House briefing room. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, the White House doctor at the time, enthusiastically endorsing the health of President Trump.
All clinical data indicates that the president is currently very healthy and that he will remain so for the duration of his presidency.
Here's what Jackson told us. The president was 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighed 239 pounds, just 1 pound shy of being clinically obese. Resting heart rate, 68. Blood pressure, 122/74. Total cholesterol, 223, a little high. Triglycerides, 129. Good cholesterol, 67. Bad cholesterol, 143.
Can you explain to me how a guy who eats McDonald's and fried chicken and all those Diet Cokes and who never exercises is in as good a shape as you say he's in?
It's called genetics. I don't know. It's some people have, just great genes. I told the president that if he had a healthier diet over the last 20 years, he might live to be 200 years old. I don't know.
And he does have heart disease, is that what you said?
He does not have heart disease. No.
He had a CT scan before that showed calcium in his coronary blood vessels.
He does. He did. He had a, I think, so technically he has non-clinical atherosclerotic coronary atherosclerosis.
That's heart disease. President Trump's coronary calcium score last year was 133. According to the Mayo Clinic, a score of 100 to 300 is associated with a relatively high risk of a heart attack over the next 3 to 5 years. President Trump doesn't smoke or drink. As of last year, he was taking 5 medications daily. 10 milligrams of Crestor to lower his cholesterol, 81 milligrams of aspirin for heart health, 1 milligram of Propecia for hair loss, a daily multivitamin, and cilantro cream, as needed, for rosacea. Dr. Jackson also said he administered a cognitive exam to the president.
The reason that we did the cognitive assessment is plain and simple because the president asked me to do it. He came to me and he said, is there something we can do, a test or some type of screen that we can do to assess my, my cognitive ability?
And this is what the Montreal Cognitive Assessment looks like. Jackson said the president got a 30 out of 30, a perfect score.
And Anna, that was just a simple statement that was released this past Friday. There's going to be more blood work results and diagnostic testing results that probably come out early in the week. You keep in mind as well that Dr. Jackson, who you just saw there in the piece, had some specific recommendations for the president. Lose 10 to 15 pounds, improve the diet by cutting back on carbs and fat, and lower the cholesterol. Anna, we'll see just how good a patient the president has been. Anna?
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, thank you. Coming up, did the godfather of soul really die of natural causes? Questions now being raised after a CNN investigation 2 years in the making into the death of James Brown. Will there now be an investigation into his death?